Inside this second episode of Outsourcing Live, I have a guest interview with an entrepreneur who's created a $1 million business outsourcing to virtual teams globally. He will also share with you how he's able to travel to beautiful exotic locations whenever he wants to because he has a virtual team helping him. And also, in the quick tip section, I'll reveal to you the backup tool I used that saved all my data when my hard drive crashed. So let's get to it.
Welcome to the Outsourcing Live podcast, where you will learn to build a virtual team to run your business. And now, your host, Tyrone Shum.
Hi everyone, it's Tyrone Shum here. I've got a really special guest here today. He's all the way from Bali. And I've been communicating with this person and also been a really big fan follower of his podcast at the Lifestyle Business Podcast for many years now. And just been awesome to be able to get him onto the call today because he's running a very successful business. And the reason why I wanted to get him onto the call today is because I wanted to find out more and share with everyone here as well all about the things that he's doing with outsourcing. So welcome to the call, Dan Andrews.
Thank you, Tyrone. It's good to be here.
Awesome. Dan, for the people who don't know you, I guess if you haven't hopped over to his podcast on the Lifestyle Business Podcast over in iTunes, you should check it out because it's something that I personally listen to and a lot of entrepreneurs listen to. But Dan's got a very unique type of business here. I'd probably say that you've done very well in the last few years that you've set up this business with your co-host or also your co-captain, I should say, Ian, over in the States. Tell us a little bit more about what you currently do. And I guess we'll go into a little bit more later about the outsourcing stuff that you're doing as well.
Sure. So we run a product development business and we deliver hard goods primarily through e-commerce outlets. So what we'll do is we'll find what we see as an underserved niche. One of the niches that we currently play in is cat furniture, for example. So we found a niche of certain kinds of cat furniture that we thought we could create a better product. We designed a better product, and then we go and manufacture it in China. And then I create websites, e-commerce stores with my staff in the Philippines and abroad. And we put up an e-commerce site, and we start to market that with traditional internet marketing types of tactics. We've been running this business for 4 years now. We have about 12 employees, most of them overseas, like digital nomadic types. We have an office in California as well. Our turnover this year our run rate is over $1 million this year. So things are going pretty well.
Fantastic. Hey, you're doing a pretty big business there, especially when you've got yourself and Ian over there in the States. This is the interesting thing is that you're running a very mobile type of business, as you can see. I mean, whereabouts are you right now?
I'm in an internet cafe in Bali, Indonesia.
Very fun. So let's actually, before we jump into a little bit about your business, maybe share a little bit more about this lifestyle type of business that you've been creating over the last few years and why. What's the reason behind it that you've done it that way?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think, for me, I don't have a venture-backed startup idea that I think in 3 years I can make millions of dollars, right? So maybe if I had that sort of idea, I would go get investors and I'd say, you know what, I'm going to bone up, I'm going to wear a tie, I'm going to go to an office, and I'm going to work my tail off. But I kind of see, look, I'm going to be running my business for the next 20 years regardless, so It better be fun. So essentially what we're trying to do is have our business serve us, and that's what we see a lifestyle business. That's sort of the principle of a lifestyle business for us. So for example, last year I took a vacation to Bali, and I met up with my business partner here, and we were both like, this is the greatest place on the frickin' planet. I would love to live there next year. And so I thought, all right, well, I'm going to move there. How can we work that into our business? And so we did. We got a villa here. We brought our interns over here. We started blogging about Bali. So I think, that's to me the difference between a more traditional business, which the goal is to, regardless of the circumstances, maximize profit for the shareholders. A lifestyle business is about serving sort of the personal interests of the owners. My personal interest was to live in Bali this year, so I'm finding a way to work that into my business. To me, that's what lifestyle business is all about.
Which is absolutely amazing because, I mean, like most people probably got used to the fact that in order to be a successful business, you've got to obviously have a big office, you've got to have staff, you've got to have a product that sells. But we've kind of turned it upside down with your business there, and I know that you've really been talking a lot about Tim Ferriss's 4-hour work week, especially in your podcast, and you've emphasised it actually most recently in one of your episodes, saying that people were knocking about the 4-hour work week and saying that it doesn't do. So yeah, I mean it's a completely different mindset, a completely different perspective on running a business. But in order to do something like that, though, you obviously need to have very, very good systems in place, because the fact is you can't run a business without having staff. You can't have a business without running systems in place. How have you been able to achieve that with your business at this point in time?
Well, the best system that we have is highly trained, motivated employees. There's no rip sheet, spreadsheet, process map that can compare with an intelligent, passionate employee who is day after day trying to solve problems for your business and serve your clients. So how do you get that done? Well, you got to make enough money. How do you make enough money? Start with a phone. I think that's the biggest thing, especially people that are building internet businesses forget. And a big point in the 4-hour work week that gets glossed over is that Tim Ferriss advocates, and so do I, that at the beginning of your business, you primarily market it with a telephone. And I think the kinds of information and relationships that you can create on telephone are absolutely unmatched. Once you get that core information about who your clients are and how they operate and what they want, then you can sort of scale that with more scalable systems like a website or an e-commerce store or whatever, or a membership site or whatever that's going to be. But I think you start with the phone. That way you can jumpstart your business, hire people, and then that's your process. I mean, I've got a bunch of people that work for me. I mean, that's essentially my hack here. The second thing relative to that is you got to create a remarkable business. You got to create something that people are excited to be a part of. Otherwise it's just another job for somebody. And I don't want the people that work for me to feel like it's just a job. I'm not going to get the best performance from them, and I'm not going to have any fun either. So, I mean, that's been part of the fun of this whole thing, is because we've taken our business in a direction that we want to take it and that we're excited about. I think that rubs off on our employees, and they're stoked to be a part of it as well.
That's fantastic. So you mentioned that you've got some employees in your business at this point in time. You've got up to 12 employees right now. Are they located in Bali with you, or are they across the rest of the world, scattered across different places?
Scattered. I'd say 4 or 5 in California. My counts they're always switching, because sometimes it's contract. In terms of full-time, I think we've got 4 full-time in California. I have 2 guys living with me here in Bali right now. I've got 1 guy who's traveling in the Philippines. I got 1 guy who's traveling in Portland. Where is everybody else? Oh, we have 2 full-time Filipinos, 1 contract Filipino. So it's everywhere.
There you go. I mean, it's amazing, because what you're saying there is actually fitting perfectly into a business model that allows you that kind of flexibility. I mean, we're talking about a lifestyle business, and also I'll be talking a little bit more about outsourcing very soon with you. But what's amazing is that you're able to have that flexibility of so many people working for you, not necessarily side by side with you, but interlinked somehow or another through means of technology, e.g. the internet, and also Skype and so forth. So it's obviously working really, really well for you. What I wanted to actually dive into now is, I guess when you first started your business, and as you said, your core aspect is to making sure that you have the telephone and you've got a product and you speak to your customers. But as the business has been expanding over the years that you've been doing, when was it that you decided to go, okay, we might look at outsourcing some of this work to other people? And obviously you've been doing a little bit in the Philippines and all across the rest of the world, like right now. When was that turning point where you just said, okay, go start outsourcing?
I think the biggest thing for us was with the websites. So we knew that we needed a world-class web presence, but we couldn't afford it. So, and I think a lot of people are in that position. They're like, well, I want a great website. I see these people like Tyrone being successful with this fantastic website. I'd like a website like Tyrone's. Well, if you walk down to the guy at the corner store who's making websites, he's going to say, well, I'll do one for you for $5,000.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I can't afford $5,000. So it was a necessity. Yeah. We needed world-class websites and we couldn't afford them. So we were like, how can we get this done? And so we started looking to places like Elance. I think that was sort of the first domino that fell. And then I was like, well, I ended up getting a business partner and an employee in Vietnam. So I went to Vietnam for a while and got software developers there. And then I heard about the Philippines, and it was just like light bulbs went off. And so I flew to the Philippines, And so, yeah, I mean, that the first domino, though, was just necessity. I mean, we could not afford. I mean, I'll give you one example that I think is stellar. A Drupal developer, the guy who I paid contract work to build my first Drupal e-commerce store, his annual salary is $95,000 a year in the U.S. Whew. And he was just doing contract work with me. He's a friend of mine. He did a contract for me on the weekends. Yep. I hired not an equivalent developer, but a good developer in the Philippines for $1,000 a month. So you're talking the difference between $95,000 a year plus benefits, plus health insurance, plus all that stuff, plus liabilities, all this kind of stuff, versus $12,000 a year in the Philippines. So, you know, no-brainer.
There's a no-brainer. In actual fact, the next thing I was going to ask you was about the benefits that you found from that. You've kind of pretty much touched on that point already. Any other benefits that you've seen from that just by obviously outsourcing somebody in the Philippines or Vietnam, as you've mentioned?
Well, you know, this word outsourcing, it's interesting because it's sort of changing a little bit. Like as our communications with each other get stronger through things like Skype and using web tools like Basecamp or whatever, it's almost like every employee you want to hire or every person you want to bring on your team, you ask yourself the question, what's the ideal place that they're located? You know what I mean? Like, and so you start to ask this new question, like why hire a software developer in Australia when you can just hire one a couple islands away, and it's 15% of the cost. So the benefit of cost has been incredible. But I think there's also an element of expansiveness that's been fantastic for me. I mean, as someone who loves adventure travel, I mean, I got the opportunity to live in the Philippines for a year and a half, learn a whole new culture, develop a lot of new friends. And there's a lot of interesting benefits that come from that stuff. Like in a month, I'm throwing a sort of a digital nomad or an internet entrepreneurs conference in the Philippines with the help of a lot of resort owners and friends that I met there. And I don't know, if I would have just sat in my office in California and never got on an airplane and never learned about these new countries, I think our business would be a much less interesting place to work. Yeah. So I think that there is these side benefits of like, it's a lot of fun. The Philippines is a fantastic country. It's a great place to just go get involved.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, obviously not everyone can do that kind of travel around and just run their business and so forth. You got to have that kind of freedom to be able to do it before jumping into doing that. But that is awesome to be able to just fly over there. I actually wanted to ask you as well, what was your main reason for flying over to the Philippines? Because a lot of people just don't have the cash or the capital to just fly over to the Philippines and just hire there. They usually just do it remotely, like contact people like Chris Ducker from Virtual Staff Finder and so forth, or contact people and on the internet and just ask them for information just directly. What was your main reason for flying over to the Philippines to hire people or look for people? I mean, I think I remember in a previous podcast you mentioned you were setting up a full team with an office and so forth like that. What's the story behind all that?
I did do that actually. Well, I mean, it's sort of a simple story. I mean, at the time I was essentially location independent in terms of my income streams. I mean, I was running this business. I was running the web portion of the business from an office in California, and I was reading about. At the time, my Vietnamese developers were not doing a good job. And I had just heard about the Philippines, and I'm sitting there in my office in California thinking, what the heck am I doing here? I don't need to be here. Like, I'm not doing anything productive here. And so I just left. I mean, I think people, in general, they set the bar too high for what their target monthly income needs to be in order to live a location-independent lifestyle. And I think people set the bar too high on security. I'm very much just a kind of F it, let's do it, this kind of guy. And I think that got me out the door sooner. I mean, if I would have waited until everything was locked down and like everything was safe and everything was gravy, who knows? I might still be sitting in that office in California.
I think there's always that tendency. Most people are trying to look to go, okay, if this happened in, say, a year's time, 12 months time, they're trying to plan ahead for it, then I'll do that. But in actual fact, it's more about taking the action right now to implement what it is that you can do. And if you're wanting to travel, like you've done as well, just go and do it rather than just sit there and try and plan out everything that's possible. Because even before this, actually...
Let me give you a super actionable hustle it up tip. If there's internet marketers who are listening to this and they're thinking, well, I'd like to hop on a plane to the Philippines too, but my website is not generating enough cash to really justify that kind of thing. A lot of people are in this position. I mean, it takes years to build these kinds of businesses. So what I did, and what a lot of people do, is you hustle it up. So right there is a market opportunity. There are a lot of people who want to go to the Philippines and hire people, but they can't make it there. So you start going around to other entrepreneurs and you say, hey, I'm going to the Philippines. I will hire people. I will do this. I will do Y, but I need somebody to help me fund this. And so there you go. You can get people to help fund your trip to the Philippines if you're willing to do some contract work. And I'll tell you what, Tyrone, I've had contracts. I've had consulting deals the whole time I've been doing this location independent business. I do consulting on the side. And now I have my virtual assistants and my interns do my consulting contracts. I actually never dropped them. Because because of the power of outsourcing, why would you drop that income stream? I mean, these people are paying you. Say you have a contract that pays you $1,000 a month.
Yep.
I've got one contract that pays me $1,000 a month, so I just get a virtual assistant to do all the work and then collect the cash, collect the checks.
That's exactly what I do as well too. It's it'd be silly just to drop a contract, especially if you've got leverage from people to be able to do it. You definitely would keep it. I'm totally in the same boat as you.
Absolutely. And so I think people will underestimate. They think it's like, oh, I got to generate all this income from my site or my ebook or whatever they're trying to do. It's like, hey, go out there and pitch this deal. Everybody wants to, a little bit of help in the Philippines. That people are really sold on the idea of the Philippines. So if you can go there and help them out, then you can maybe get a contract.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very easy to do that. I mean, even if you, say, for example, you took on a contract, say, in the States or even in Australia, just to do some web development work, if you're that kind of person, or you took on some consultancy work, it's actually not that hard. All you have to do is just liaise with the client and then just send off the work to your virtual assistant. And that's exactly what,
Yes.
I think almost majority of us who have set up systems to be able to do that, or pretty much just getting the work, it's not that hard to do.
Well, I mean, and if you look at, if you're an Australian, I guess a lot of your audience are Australians. I mean, Australians are just getting hip to like what's going on in the Philippines, and there are big contracts to be scored. I mean, you can walk into small to medium-sized enterprises and say, all right, I see you've got 7 web developers sitting there, and you've got 15 SEO copywriters. The SEO copywriters are all making $15 freaking an hour. The web developers are making $70,000 a year. I think we can do something here, right? I'm getting on a plane in 3 weeks. What can we do? Same thing with voice outsourcing. I mean, there's an incredible opportunity. Costs are even lower for voice outsourcing for Australian firms in the Philippines because the time zones are lined up. So
exactly.
I mean, there's tons of contracts there. And if you need that 1-year runway to get your runway started in the Philippines, there's opportunities there left and right.
Exactly. And all you have to do is just contact a few people. Even if you just contact us, we might be able to just refer people to you to be able to get those contracts done. So actually, you just got to talk and get on the phone and speak to people and really just hustle, as you say. So it's absolutely true.
Absolutely.
That's excellent. Well, I'd like to just get into a little bit more nuts and bolts now with your business and find out how you've been able to set up the systems to be able to outsource. Because I know a lot of people understand the concept behind it. You've explained to the people that the reasons why you've gone into the Philippines to outsource your business. Now let's talk a little bit more about the nuts and bolts and I guess how you've also set that up. Where was the starting point that you managed to set up a team and what did you do?
I guess my starting point was hiring job boards. So bestjobs.ph. I hired a developer from Drupal.org, the sites, and I also hired a copywriter from his personal blog.
Oh, great!
So those were the three first hires that I made in the Philippines. When I first showed up in the Philippines, I basically toured the Philippines to get a feel for the place. I started in Cebu. I went to Boracay. I went to Manila. I ended up settling in Dumaguete for 3 months. And then I ended up settling in Manila and starting an office and stuff like that. But my starting point was bestjobs.ph, putting up a job ad and starting to drum up some employees.
Oh, excellent. That's really interesting. And I guess what was your are those people still working with you right now, or are they still in part of your business? Do you still need Drupal developers, by the way, I should say?
I do need Drupal developers. If you got any, forward them my way. Yeah, so I'm trying to think. No, none of the original people that I hired, close to a year and a half now, still work for me. I'd say I have 2 employees now that have been with me for about 15 months. That's about 15 or 16 months.
That's pretty good.
So that would be my longest term employees, yeah.
Okay.
Turnover, I mean, to be honest, turnover tends to be high in the Philippines.
Yeah, I mean, like, it depends on what kind of work they do. If they're like a virtual assistant who are looking for stable income and wanting to stick with you for long term, and you got good incentives and good benefits, they'd want to stay. I mean, that's with anyone, regardless, wherever part of the world you go into, US, Australia, etc. I think it's just about creating the culture, as you said there. But when you actually came to the Philippines and you first hired those 3 people, and you decided, okay, these are the people that I need. Did you have sort of an idea of how you wanted to train them? Did you have an idea of what kind of things that you need to do with them? Did you have set hours? Like, what were some of the nitty-gritty things that you had to do when you first started with them?
Yeah, I mean, I've made so many mistakes on this front, and part of the backstory is that I was hiring people in the Philippines before I came to the Philippines too. So like I was doing it for 6 months before I actually got on that plane, like hiring VAs and developers and stuff. And I guess like I would say if the biggest problem that I had and the biggest problem that I see other people having is that you underestimate how much effort it is to hire a VA. Like a lot of people see VAs as like, I've got a website, I don't know how to run it, and that's a pain. So if Tyrone says I can get somebody in the Philippines for $350, boom, I'm going to do that. I'm going to hire somebody, and then my problems are going to go away. And the problem is like, it's sort of like the promise of technology is the promise of employees. Like the promise of technology has always been that you work less, but that's not the case. You get technology and you work more. Same thing with employees. Like the promise of employees is that you hire an employee and you work less. It's bullshit. You work more when you have employees because you still got to do your work and then you got to help them do their work too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. Like I would say if you're thinking about hiring a virtual assistant or an employee in the Philippines, get yourself prepared to really sit with them and invest in them, spend time in them. The biggest thing that I've ever done with my employees is just spend time with them. Like go to Manila, learn about who they are, spend time on the telephone with them, share with them what my goals are for them and for my business. And I think the more of kind of that relationship you can build, the more kind of empathy you can have for each other, the better things are going to be.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you, actually. It's interesting that what I totally align with you on what you've said about those things is that get to really know them, because I always tell people it takes you at least a month or to 3 months to really get to know if your person that you're working with, particularly VA or web developer or so forth, is suitable for that role that you've hired them for. And it takes that time to train them, to get to really know them, even just to get to know their family. It's also a good thing, because then when you get to know that, then you can really help them meet their needs of what they want. Because they're just like you and me. They're humans, except they have a really good skill set that you're hiring them for. And I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah, so I think the appropriate frame of reference when you're thinking about getting a virtual assistant is you want to think of them like it was hiring an employee in your home country. So, I mean, a lot of people are like, virtual assistants are a pain in the butt. Like, I've been having all this trouble with mine and like this and that. And I think a lot of these people, like, that's the same sort of feedback you're going to have about employees in your own country. I mean, employees are always a challenge. It's building teams is difficult, and there's no difference. In fact, there's some increased difficulty with, sort of overcoming the cultural differences, which aren't big, but they're there, and then also the time and trying to build a relationship over Skype or whatever. So anyway, I just want to say it's not like the most difficult thing on the planet, but just to get yourself ready for a challenge. You want to build a relationship. It's not just a pawn that you can move into place and get your websites done.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree on you on that one. The interesting thing is that you said it's a challenge to build, I guess, a team and the culture and so forth. Like, say for example, do you expect once you hire someone, say on a full-time basis, or to come onto your team as being a part-time, do you give them ground rules to say, look, this is your role and this is what you do, or are you sort of also micromanaging them on a day-to-day basis because to get them up to where they need to be?
No, so I don't. I mean, I generally hire experienced people, so that's number one thing. So I'm paying a little bit like higher price ranges, which, I mean, it just depends on your personality. Like, I am a really hands-off manager in general.
Good.
And so I don't want to manage people. And so I write, like this morning, it was Monday, so I got on and I wrote to my Filipino staff and I said, hey, how are you guys doing? Here are the kinds of things that I'm focused on doing for the business this week. Really general stuff like I'm meeting up with my business partner Ian on Wednesday, and like here's where we're gonna meet. We're gonna be in the Philippines. Like on these dates, we plan on meeting up with you guys. I know generally you're working on this kind of stuff. I'm a little behind on my email. Let me know what you guys are going to be doing on Monday and Tuesday. And they're advanced level people, so they just. I mean, I was just looking at my email now. They wrote back with like the list of priorities that they're working on, the things that they're focused on, and stuff like that. So, that's my process, is like to build relationships with people, and that's how I manage people.
Nice. Okay. So you're more of a hands-off manager, as you said. Basically, you hire these people with experience, and also too that they've got the skill set that you need it for. So basically, it's like, okay, here's the role, which is you're developing a website for these projects. I'm going to hand them over to you. You take out and you take responsibility on doing those things, and you just basically manage. And I'll check in with you on a day-to-day basis or week-to-week basis. Is that how you pretty much go?
Pretty much. I mean, a lot of it too is I don't. I basically make myself irrelevant. So I hook two people up, and I have a Photoshop person in the Philippines, and I have a person who needs a lot of Photoshop in California. So I introduce them. I put some basic protocols in place, like let's use Dropbox. Here's how I want you guys to email with each other. Maybe we'll have one Skype meeting, and then I just say, hey, you guys don't need me anymore.
Yeah.
So
right.
I mean, I'm trying to get myself out of this stuff so that I can focus on what I'm interested in the business.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's definitely not helping people get basic Photoshop tasks done. I mean, these people are Photoshop professionals. They don't need some bozo like me getting involved in their work. So
you're not bozo. Yeah, I guess you can say it's more like management. Then you don't want someone to be overlooking on their backs all the time, which is exactly how outsourcing should work. Actually, that's how we're supposed to be looking at. Talking about, I guess, communication, do you use any type of tools or anything like that to communicate with them and also to get the projects done? And I know there's a lot of project management systems out there. Do you use any of them?
I've tried them all. I've advocated them all, and I've systematically failed at everything. Just a colossal failure on all fronts. There's only two things that have persisted. One is email, and two is Skype. And so I've done like office hour kind of stuff and everything, but I basically just dropped everything. And now it's like, hey, if you're working, please put your green light on Skype. That's it. And I mean, the thing about it is like, I mean, I think that there's a huge benefit to working for a lifestyle business. You set your own hours, you're responsible for results, not hours at your desk. I am not tracking anybody's time. I don't care about any of that stuff. And so, take the good with the bad. Like you don't have as much control as a micromanager would have, but I got this added benefit of people that are excited about their jobs, and I get to spend my time the way I want to as well. So, good with that. I'm not totally managing everything that's going on in my business. I'm sort of setting the direction. It's like, I think too, as things get a little bit bigger, Tyrone, it's more like steering a battleship. You sort of set the direction, and you hope that your attitudes and philosophy start to seep down in your organization, but you just can't be managing everybody all the time, or else you lose all your time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It comes back down to core values of you, which you want to be able to speak out to the rest of your team, and if they can really embrace that, then really they're just going to take your ship on, because all you're doing is being the captain, and you're just giving really just the information that they need. If they don't need the information directly from you, they can get it from elsewhere, which is exactly what you're doing.
And there's no, I mean, and then back to my original point is with my Filipino employees, like there's no separate kind of thing. I mean, they are just employees. They're just now part of the organization. They sort of get the same liberties and benefits that other employees would have, and it's just the same way I would manage a California employee. I'm managing my folks in the Philippines.
Yeah, it's a really different perspective on the way that you've just talked about it, is that, yes, that you don't track their hours, you're not managing or micromanaging them, you're not getting them to be sending a report to you every day. Am I assuming that's right? Yeah? You don't do that.
No, don't bother.
You don't bother. So, like, I know there's going to be people who are going to be asking on this podcast, listening and say, hey, Dan, then how the heck do you know what they're doing? I mean, you've obviously been successful in getting a business to do $1 million turnover in your business with all these people in your teams. But how are you tracking your results? How are you managing those results and getting the results that you definitely desire?
Well, that's a good point. I mean, what metrics are you going to track in your business? For me, it's top line revenue, and then bottom line profits. Those are the two numbers that I watch. I don't care what employee number 10 did on Wednesday morning.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if that becomes my scope of concern, my business is going to suffer, I think. So I think it's about, when I go to the Philippines, like I'm going to meet with my employees. I'm going to share with them the plan. And we're actually going to go to a resort together and have a party.
Nice.
And so to me, that's the top level stuff. I'm the CEO. Like that's the kind of stuff I'm not technically the CEO, but can you really be the CEO?
Don't need to be the CEO, man.
I don't know. Like I'm the CEO of a 12-person company. But I am I'm the owners and so like those are the things that I'm sort of focused on. Yeah. So how do I know what they're doing? Like, well, this morning I asked them, "Hey, what are you doing? Let me know. I'm curious today. Let me know in a brief, quick little email what you're focused on today, and then I can try to weigh in. But I don't want to interrupt them either. A lot of times their priorities might be a bit different than mine. But if someone's jazzed up about, hey, this is a great design project, I'm pumping out logos or new mock-ups or whatever, I'll let them keep going on that because I know how it feels to be interrupted myself.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, it depends on your business too. I mean, so for me, it's more a matter of I'm not micromanaging people because I know where that leads. It leads to me spending all my time looking over the shoulder of people that make, frankly, much less than I'm capable of making if I focus on the top line of my business.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is the interesting thing, and this is a question I actually wanted to ask you is, as you've been developing over the years, you've been developing teams, you've grown your team, you've also hired and fired people as well. How have you known that the team members have not performed? Because obviously that comes to a certain point in your business. As you said, some of the people you've hired in the past haven't stayed on as long, for the rest of your business. But where is the line where you got to draw and say, look, this guy's not performing? Because you've got to obviously come to some metrics and also say to him, look, this is what you haven't been doing.
Yeah. So let me back up to share an anecdote about this whole issue of management. I decided last year that having the maximum amount of Filipinos working for me was going to make me the maximum amount of money, and I needed to control it. So I set up an office in Manila. I brought all my people in begrudgingly at 8 a.m. in the morning. I sat there with them till 6 p.m. every night, and I was like on them all day long. And you know how much my productivity of my overall business went up?
Zip.
I had no idea. I couldn't figure it out. I literally sat in an office with these people for 3 months. I knew everything. I knew what they ate for lunch. I knew everything. And it had zero impact on my business except everybody was freaking miserable. And so, I mean, that was a big lesson for me, Tyrone. I was like, Basecamp doesn't work. Whatever, all these like cool little apps, they're not working for me. So I'm going to get an office, old school. I'm going to get everybody in there and I'm going to ask them every morning what they're doing. I'm going to have meetings with them, breakouts, you name it, whiteboard, and nada. Like I couldn't. And part of the issue is these are, in many ways, Tyrone, they're support staff. So, and we need to be focused on growing our business as entrepreneurs. So, the critical decision was made in hiring these people and putting them to work and inspiring them. Managing day-to-day tasks, I mean, it's marginal.
That's right.
Now, how do you decide, whether or not to fire people? For me, I have this weird metric. I call it lift. So you look at an employee and you feel like, are they giving you leverage? Or do you feel like they're being highly communicative to you? I mean, that's the biggest thing to me is you need a combination of people who are communicative and responsive and who actually dig in and give you lift. Not just people who are passing emails around, but people who man, they dug in for 2 or 3 hours and they solved a problem. If I see a lack of that happening over the course of many weeks, I will have an emergency meeting. Like just recently, I flew to Manila to basically sit my lead developer down and say, what's going on, brother? It became obvious to me that his heart was elsewhere and that he didn't see his biggest opportunity as my company. And to me, that's when it changes. I mean, if I'm not getting lift from people and if I feel like they're dragging me down, I mean, it's not a clean thing. I mean, I think it's a judgment call for every entrepreneur to make. And it's for me, it's the toughest decision to make in the world is to let somebody go. But some people make it easy for you.
Yeah, that's so true. Hey, that's a really good point there. And I sort of also go by that metric as well. But at the same time, because I'm working remotely with a particular person, I need to also back that up saying, look, these things are not being done. So that way I can substantiate why the reasons I've got to let you go. Otherwise, if you just go off by gut feeling, and don't substantiate or back it up, then it doesn't look very good on you as well too. So that's the other thing that we always ask, make sure that those things are done. Hey, that's really cool though. I guess one thing I just wanted to do, because I know you've given us so many cool tips, you've given us really the inside strategies of how your business works and how you've looked at it from the mindset point of view and outsourcing. What I like to do is to, just before we finish up this podcast, is to ask you, if you were to suggest one thing that you could recommend to people about outsourcing and what's worked for you in your business, what would the one thing be?
Okay, so outside of the idea that outsourcing employees is essentially hiring employees, so taking it with that level of seriousness, I think the second thing is I think people think that outsourcing solves more problems than it does. Outsourcing is essentially a cost-effective way to hire employees. So hiring employees won't build you a business. And I think a lot of people, they see the promise of VAs as a way to get a business off the ground. I don't agree with that. I think before you hire VAs, you want to have found a scalable source of cash flow for your business. And once you've identified what's making your business money, that's the time that you plug in employees and you get them started helping you to grow that business or grow that source of cash flow. I mean, this whole issue of like, well, I've hired VAs, like, what should I have them do for me?
Yeah.
If you've got a sustainable source of income, that's a moot question. Yeah. Like, I know exactly what I need. I need these people to be working on these sources of cash flow, managing the clients, like optimizing the conversion rates. Like, these questions melt away once you've found that scalable source of income. And that burden is on you as the entrepreneur. I see a lot of people maybe jump a little bit too quick into the whole VA thing, and they haven't quite figured out how they're going to make their money. So I think, look, hiring people in the Philippines isn't going to free you up from the dirty work of being an entrepreneur, which is figuring out how you're going to make money from this thing. So figure that out first, and then that's when you plug in your employees.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. And I guess the action step for people is don't hire anyone unless you have a sustainable cash flow first before you decide to outsource the work.
Or you have an investment plan. And I'm okay with too. I mean, yeah, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. The investment plan would be important as well too, but you got to make sure you can sustain that. Otherwise, don't go ahead with doing it like that. So yeah, that's awesome then, Dan. Well, thank you so much for coming onto the call today. We've had an interesting chat, and also too, we've had an interesting break in between. Had a little bit of interval, so it's worked out really well. Love to come over and visit you in Bali soon. So I hope that you'll still be around there when I come over sometime soon. And
I will be.
If people want to get in contact with you, how can they find out a little bit more about your business and yourself as well?
Sure. Please do listen to the Lifestyle Business Podcast. You can find that at lifestylebusinesspodcast.com. I do a bunch of other stuff on the internet too, but you can find all about it at that site.
Awesome. Hey, guys, you guys have to check that out. I listen to it. A lot of entrepreneurs listen to it, and I highly recommend it. It's actually one of my number one podcasts that I put on in the car as soon as I go around driving. So thanks very much for that.
Thanks, Tyron. I appreciate that.
Awesome. It's time for the Outsourcing Live Quick Tip. Recently, I had my hard drive just crash up on me, and unfortunately, I had to replace this hard drive and go through the tedious process of reinstalling everything. But fortunately for me, I had already backed up a lot of my data. I'd say about 98% of all my data was already backed up online, and that 2% was just the work that I had done that day. Unfortunately, I hadn't backed it up but in saying that, I could recover 98% of my data all from online. And there's this really awesome tool called Backblaze, which you can get access to it at www.outsourcinglive.com/Backblaze, spelled BACKBLAZE. And you can check it out there. It's a really awesome tool for about $3.96 per month. If you go into a yearly plan, which is roughly equivalent to $50 a year, you can back up everything on your computer. Available for both PC and also Mac as well. And it's got unlimited storage, and I had almost close to 55 to 60 gigs available or backed up online. Nowadays, I have both Time Machine, which is my USB storage, and also backup on the Backblaze server as well. So this is a really great tool for you to be able to use, to be able to back up anything, and you won't have to worry about losing anything. And also lastly, if you want to check out the how to use the Backblaze backup system, I've created a special video post for you at outsourcinglive.com/Backblaze-review. And you can check out the step-by-step review on how I've used it and also how to set it up as well. Now, if you like more resources like this one, you can find them inside Mass Outsource Mastermind, along with video tutorials and step-by-step instructions showing exactly how I use them. To get a 30-day, no-risk trial membership to Mass Outsource Mastermind, simply visit freevideoset.com. Until next time, I wish you success in your quest for outsourcing.